This is America on the Road, named Best Radio Show by the International Automotive Media Conference, and now in its 29th year on the air. Thanks for being with us as we bring you the latest automotive information from around the world. It's game on in the midsize truck segment with the all-new Toyota Tacoma getting ready to do battle with an all-new Ford Ranger, all-new Chevrolet Colorado, all-new GMC Canyon. I'll tell you how they all stack up. I mean, it's an exciting time for midsize trucks. That's for certain. America on the Road is brought to you by drivingtoday.com, yourtestdriver.com, emlancy.com, the publisher of my latest book, Dance in the Dark, and Mercury Insurance. If you're looking to save some money, you should switch to Mercury for your auto and home insurance. Californians save an average of $670 with Mercury, so imagine how much you could save. Get a quote today at drivingtoday.com/auto insurance. It's drivingtoday.com/auto-insurance. Don't type out hyphen, put a hyphen in there, little hyphen thing. A new consumer survey shows that many American car buyers want electric vehicles, but there's one big hangup that prevents many of them from buying one. We'll tell you what that is and more on that survey coming up. BMW might make a production vehicle out of a recent concept car that caused a lot of buzz, particularly, I think, among auto journalists. We'll talk about that and the auto journalist's strange fascination with that particular type of car. We'll give you details on that. And Stellantis is recalling a lot of vehicles because of a fire risk. Maybe that's of more immediate attention. More on that later. I am Jack Nerad. With me is co-host Chris Teague. Chris, welcome. I think you have pets in the room with you, and it's probably a cool thing, right? What's the latest in your household?
I do have pets in the room with me, a very large dog who does not like being cooped up in this room, but it keeps the cats out so we can have a peaceful recording. Actually, I'm having some excitement coming up. I may or may not have purchased a new car, which I will tell you about next week, I think. It was going to be shipped from New Jersey, so at least this time it's coming from the same coast that I am on. How about you? How are things on your side of the world?
Things are exciting. We're having a good time here. I took a drive with my wife up to San Luis Obispo, visited my daughter at college. We had a good time doing that. A quick turnaround trip, 400 miles total or something like that, maybe 500 miles. So a nice time to test drive some vehicles. So good stuff. Chris, of course, lives at one end of the country. I live at the other. Each week we get together to talk about cars, the car industry, and how to get the most for the money you spend on cars. And we review a couple of vehicles, and you have a very cool vehicle. I mean, very exciting vehicle, I think, this time around, Chris.
I do. I drove the F-150 Raptor R, the Ford F-150 Raptor R. It's a very exciting pickup truck, so I can't wait to tell you all about it.
Yeah, well, I can't wait to hear about it. And it's not just a Raptor, it's a Raptor R. So cool stuff. I had a vehicle. I'll tell you, I like this vehicle a ton. I don't want to spoil the review, but there's maybe some things not to like about it, but there's plenty to like about it. It's the 2023 Genesis Electrified G70 all-wheel drive Prestige. A mouthful for me, not quite getting my mouth around that, but it is a luxury crossover with some performance chops. And I liked it a bunch. I tested it right here around home, and I'll have a detailed report. We also have a really fascinating guest for you. Jonathan Chen is a senior product expert at VinFast. VinFast, of course, is the Vietnam-based automaker that is just entering the U.S. market. We recently got a chance to drive the VinFast VF8 battery electric crossover, kind of in some ways competitive with the Genesis I was driving this past week or so. We'll discuss that. We'll discuss VinFast plans for entering the U.S. market. They're entering in California first, California and Canada, which of course is not part of the U.S. I realize that. Don't email me and say, well, Canada isn't part of the U.S. It's their North American launch. Then they will spread out across America, so we'll talk about that. Before we do anything else, though, let's bring you some of the most important news from around the world. And mid-size truck mania here. What do you think, Chris? I mean, so many all-new mid-size trucks after, sometimes decades without one. The latest is the Toyota Tacoma. What's your reaction?
Look, we talked about this before. I think even on the last show, mid-size trucks are the sweet spot for a lot of people. I think they get a lot done. And the newer ones that are coming out, the ones that you just mentioned, what a fantastic year to be shopping for a mid-size pickup truck. I mean, the new Ford Ranger, the Chevrolet Colorado, the GMC Canyon, and now the Toyota Tacoma, excuse me, competing with the also recently refreshed Nissan Frontier, which I always forget. So it's a very exciting year.
You didn't forget it this time. Good for you. And it's certainly a vehicle to consider. I like it a lot. Toyota Tacoma, I think after the Frontier launched it as a new one, became the oldest vehicle in the market by a lot. I think it was introduced something like 2008, or was where the platform started. I mean, talk about long in the tooth. I mean, it's really up there. But now a bunch of different things. And this is kind of exciting to me and something unexpected to me anyway, this Trail Hunter edition, kind of a competitor to the Colorado ZR2 and the Canyon AT4X, Ranger Raptor. What's your reaction as a Toyota fan to a Toyota high-performance off-road truck?
I think it's about time, although they've had the TRD trims for several years now. But I think it's interesting that Toyota took it to like this overlanding direction. Like we want you to use it for camping and everything else. The Raptor is it's a desert dune bashing pickup truck. Everything you see is it's jumping over something. And I don't think that the Trail Hunter is going to be like that, even though it does have quite a few very robust off-roading parts.
Yeah. Well, a lot of different powertrains in the new Tacoma. I don't want to get into heavy details on this. They launched it on the big island of Hawaii. We unfortunately weren't there to see the launch, but we got details on it. 2 different 4-wheel drive systems, a bunch of different engines. I think a hybrid powertrain with a 2.7 liter gasoline engine and about 326 horsepower total and a ton of torque. So that should be an interesting version of this 278 horsepower iForce engine as well. So certainly this was a vehicle in need of update. I think you had identified a lot of things that maybe were shortfalls compared to the more modern trucks here. So I think they're doing the right thing, right?
I agree. From what I can see, obviously none of us have driven it yet, but from what I can see, it looks like they've addressed all the things that we and every other journalist and owner has ticked off over the last few years.
Yeah. A lot of safety stuff. I'm really excited to drive this thing. I will probably go to the U.S. launch. Certainly Hawaii is in the U.S. I understand that too. I understand that Canada is not, but Hawaii is part of the United States. But when we get a chance to drive it, we will give you a full report. Well, we also are giving you this full report on this latest survey from KPMG, their Consumer Pulse survey. And they found that a lot of people want to buy electrified vehicles, either a hybrid or a full electric vehicle. Most consumers are considering a switch to that, or at least they're willing to consider it. By most, that means over 50% are. But there's one big hangup, and I bet you can guess what it is, Chris. You're nodding, so I think you're going to tell me what it is. And
the purchase price.
Yeah, purchase price. Winner, winner, winner. Chicken dinner for Chris Teague. A lot of people. We're seeing a dichotomy here. People who make $100,000 or more a year, their household income is something like that, they're much more likely to have an electric vehicle or even a hybrid vehicle than people whose incomes are below $100,000. Kind of makes sense because the premium on electric vehicles. If we're going to see widespread adoption of electric vehicles, we've got to see more affordable electric vehicles, and I just don't see us seeing them come to the market right now. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, we've heard promises. Well, we've heard Tesla say it for several years. Now we're hearing GM saying, yeah, the $30,000 electric crossover is coming this year with the electrified vehicles that they've got coming. So I hope they're able to pull it off. As you mentioned, price is a huge sticking point. The people say, well, you don't buy a car on price, but a lot of people do. So I think that's going to be a major hurdle to clear before any widespread adoption can be even a fantasy in some of these scenarios.
Yeah, I wonder if we're chasing too much range, right? I mean, because range is certainly the enemy of low price. And if you're looking at vehicles with something like 300 or 300 plus miles of range, you're looking at vehicles that are well over $50,000. I don't know of one that's under that or close to that. Maybe that's too much for some of these folks.
I agree. I think a lot of people could get away with a lot less than that. There's this sort of anxiety of range anxiety. That's a big thing. But I think charging times are just as important as range, and a lot of people forget to look at that. So hopefully that becomes a focus going forward.
Yeah, and I think if you're using a vehicle, say for around town driving, if you have multiple vehicles in your household and one is basically used to commute back and forth to work or, take kids to school or get groceries or whatever, I mean, that could be electric and have 150 miles of range. You charge up at home and you're just rocking and rolling, and there's nothing wrong with that. So something to look at going forward. Well, here's something that always gets car journalists excited. That is a touring coupe that looks like a station wagon. It's kind of a high-performance station wagon. For some reason, we auto journalists just seem to love station wagons with performance things. This is from BMW, their touring coupe concept. They're thinking of making this a production vehicle, short-run production vehicle. What's your quick reaction to that, Chris?
Well, I do fit into that category. I think it looks fantastic, and I wish I could afford one.
Yeah. Well, I love them too, and I maybe to get your journalist card, you need to have that. Also, Stellantis is recalling about 200,000 Jeep Cherokee SUVs for fire risks. If you have one of these and have a power liftgate, well, something could catch fire. So don't park it inside your garage. Park it outside until you've got the thing fixed, and head off and get that thing fixed. We recommend that quite highly. So that's the quick report on the Stellantis fire risk. And when we come back, we will be testing two really cool vehicles. I can't wait to hear what Chris has to say about the Ford Raptor R, the F-150 Raptor R. So stay with us for that. And I was driving the Genesis Electrified GV70. So hot tickets. Stay with us, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to America on the Road with Chris Teague, Jack Nerad back with you. We're so glad you're with us on America on the Road. And it is road test time, and not only road test time, but maybe off-road test time too, because you had the Ford F-150 Raptor R. Tell us about that, Chris.
Yeah, when I first moved into the house, we had the Ram TRX, and I told you how ridiculous it was to try to use that vehicle as a moving truck. This week we were building some stuff in our woods, a path down to the river, and I took the Raptor R to Home Depot, and I got to tell you, it is every bit as ridiculous trying to move stuff in this truck as it was with the TRX. Maybe more so because we were lifting things in by hand. But I have to tell you, my test truck came in at just shy of $120,000 with all the options. This truck is not cheap to start. The regular Raptor is also not cheap, but this one is $30,000 more expensive as an option to add on to that. But you get a lot for your money, Jack. You get a 5.2 liter V8 with a supercharger, makes 700 horsepower and 640 pound-feet of torque. Sends that power to all four wheels through a 10-speed automatic transmission. And this truck had the 37-inch tires, which make it feel like a monster truck. Have you been able to drive the Raptor R yet, Jack?
I have not. I think I drove the Raptor version, but I haven't gone up to the. I guess I couldn't come up with the extra 30K. I mean, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, and I will tell you, so this truck is dramatic from the price tag every step of the way. So on startup, the inside of my house rattles when we start this truck up. My neighbor actually sent me a text the other day and said that he was thankful that I don't own the truck full time, because it's definitely a wake-up call for everyone within earshot of opening it. But so you've got the big V8, you've got a supercharger, you've got four-wheel drive, and you've got a massive off-road suspension system in this truck. I really do think that it is as capable as they claim it to be. You've seen videos of these trucks flying over things in the desert, and it really does perform that way. I took it over to the fairgrounds and ran through some mudded fields, and I got to tell you, Jack, even the biggest ruts in the field feel just like you're driving straight over grass in this thing. It feels unstoppable, almost completely unstoppable. But on top of that, you've got the full F-150 experience to go with all the off-road capability. It's still a spacious truck inside. It's a crew cab with a short bed. So you've got seating for 5 people. You've got a luxurious interior. It has suede leather, heated and ventilated seats. There were no massaging seats here, which I assume people can probably get around that just by going off-road. You get your own massaging, bumping around in the seat. The larger of the two infotainment screens, it's running Sync 4. It's got wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. And this truck was equipped top to bottom with all the safety equipment. So blind spot monitoring, forward collision alerts, all the things that you would expect in your family Accord or family Camry sedan, you've got here in this, sort of trail bashing off-road pickup truck. I got to tell you, Jack, I think the price here is a little bit sticky. The sticking point for me, obviously, is $100,000+ pickup truck. I think the size here is another issue. So I often talk about how the F-150 feels like it shrinks around you as you drive it. This truck does not do that. This truck lets you know how large and how wide it is at all times, and the 37-inch tires are a big part of that. So the turning radius is a little wide, and it feels kind of hard to center in your lane, but man, what a fantastic off-road capability, and that sound is something else. So I think if you can live with the price and some of the trade-offs, this is definitely an entertaining pickup truck to live with on a daily basis.
Couple of questions for you, Chris. I mean, what was the on-road ride and handling like?
It's almost like, it's very, very smooth, I have to say. So it's surprising how well this thing chews up bumps and potholes in the road. And a lot of that's down to the tires too, I will admit that, but it's surprisingly smooth.
Mm-hmm. And how about loading this thing? I mean, as tall as this thing is, I think getting stuff into the bed might be an issue at sometimes.
Yeah, I took it yesterday, like I said, to Home Depot to load 50-pound bags of mulch and soil into the truck. And I don't consider myself to be a bodybuilder, but I'm strong enough to pick those bags up. And I have to tell you, I've started to feel a little weak after the second one, lifting them up over my shoulders to get it into the truck bed. So something to think about if you're using it as a daily sort of everyday pickup truck.
Yeah. Well, specialized thing, very cool. I mean, you certainly have bragging rights among all F-150 owners across the world when you have that F-150 Raptor R. But as always, there are trade-offs, aren't there?
I agree.
Well, I was driving a vehicle that I frankly like a ton. It is the Genesis Electrified GV70. I've liked the GV70 as their crossover kind of mid-size, I guess, or a compact crossover utility. I like the gasoline-powered version, but the electrified version, if anything, I like it even more, which in some ways is a surprise to me. It has all the goodness of the GV70, which is a really upscale interior. The driving demeanor is terrific, good ride quality, and yet sporting ambitions. And then you throw in electric drive, and I think you've got something pretty special here. Just good stuff all the way around. Maybe again, the sticking point, apropos the survey that we talked about in the previous segment, is the price. Pricing starts out at about $65,000, almost $66,000, and then there's a freight charge. So as you're getting into this, you're spending probably close to $70,000 just for the price of entry. You do get a ton of stuff. I mean, you have an electronic adaptive suspension, 20-inch alloy wheels, panoramic sunroof, hands-free liftgate. Happily, I don't think it catches fire, as some others might. Power folding outside mirrors, leather seating, all that kind of stuff. Great, great, well-equipped stuff. 14.5-inch touchscreen, so you have this massive, horizontal touchscreen that I like. And 8-inch digital gauge cluster. Maybe that's not quite as good, but it's pretty darn good. I mean, this is a full-featured vehicle. If you want to spring for another $7,000 or so, you can go up to even nicer leather seating, Napa leather seating, and a larger digital gauge cluster that goes up to 12.3 inches. So head-up display. I like a head-up display too. Although sometimes I don't know whether you do this or not, Chris. Sometimes I forget to look at the head-up display, which it seems weird, right? Because it's right in front of you. But I keep looking down at the dash to see how fast I'm going. And do you do that?
Yeah, if you don't have one in your car every day, I tend to look past it. My wife thinks they're distracting. I actually really like them. But yeah, it's hard for me to remember that it's there for some vehicles.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, plenty of horsepower in this thing, 429 horsepower and tons of torque. I mean, 516 pound-feet of torque. That's a lot more than in the conventional powered vehicle. Maybe that's why I like it so much. Reasonable range. I'm not sure that, a lot of people want range that starts with the number 3. This starts with the number 2, 238 miles of electric range. Pretty good number, but I guess competitive with the other electric luxuries out there, like the EQB from Mercedes-Benz and the Volvo XC60. Nothing particular to write home about there. Again, that's kind of on the edge for me. And I think a lot of people, I was talking to Ed Kim, who is an analyst for Auto Pacific, recently at the Electrify Expo. And he talked about 300 miles as being maybe the kind of low end or the right range for things. What's your take on range?
Yeah, I think we said earlier, I think a lot of people get hung up on the range number, and they don't actually need that amount. A lot of us don't drive 300 miles a day. I mean, you and I drive professionally a lot of the time, and I still have trouble to put 300 miles on a car before I stop at times. So I don't know. I think 300 is a good floor, but I think, wanting more than that is you really need to sit down and evaluate your driving.
Right. Well, this is a terrific car to drive. I mean, plenty of horsepower. Talk about silky smooth. Of course, there's no gears to change, so you just use all that power and torque, just more, you push down on the accelerator, more power, more power, more power, more power. Great kind of stuff. It has the handling to deal with that. And this is one electric where I don't feel like the batteries kind of overpower me as I'm cornering. I felt pretty good about the cornering. I think it corners more like a conventional gasoline-powered car. And frankly, I like that feel as opposed to trying to balance battery weights, doing centrifugal force around a corner. You have any thoughts on that?
No, I do like the battery, the handling of the battery, and the handling with the battery. Geez, I keep talking, can't talk right. But I think they've done a great job balancing that. Where some, the ride quality is too rough. So I think they've done a good job.
Yeah. So this is a terrific car. Again, I don't know whether you want to spring for that added premium, which is a lot of money. I think all said and done, at least $10,000 more. This is a luxury vehicle, though, and if you want a luxury vehicle, I think it's top notch in the class. I really am hard pressed to think that any of the others, they're good vehicles, but are better than the 2023 Genesis Electrified GV70. I think it's just a winner.
I agree.
Nice job. So there you go with that. We have a fascinating guest for you. Jonathan Chen is a senior product expert at VinFast. That, of course, is a Vietnam-based automaker that is entering the U.S. market via California. And California is still part of the United States. We got a chance to drive the VF8 battery electric crossover recently. We're going to talk with him about that, talk with him about what the company is doing, because they have an interesting launch strategy and, of course, very interesting vehicles. So stay with us for that. With Chris Teague, this is Jack Nerad with you. We're happy you're with us, and stay with us through the break. We'll have Jonathan Chen next. Welcome back, everybody, to America on the Road. Jack Nerad with you, and we're at a really interesting place, driving a really interesting vehicle and talking about a bunch of interesting vehicles with a product expert on those, Jonathan Chen. Thanks so much for being with us. We do appreciate it. VinFast is introducing vehicles to the United States, and we had a chance to drive one of them today, the WF8 sport utility vehicle, all electric, of course, and let's talk about it. Let's talk about VinFast first, because I think that's important. This is a new name to a lot of people. Tell us about the brand.
Yeah, of course. It's great to be here. VinFast is owned by a large Vietnamese conglomerate called Vin Group. Within Vin Group, there are quite a few sister companies, and VinFast being the automotive division, we have VinES, the battery team that sits within that group. Over on trade and services, there's VinCom, VinHomes, that are doing real estate throughout the country, Vietnam specifically. VinPearl is our luxury resorts, and then there's a separate team or group of companies that are nonprofit, VinMech, which is the hospitals, VinUni, VinSchools, all in the name of creating a better world for people.
Yeah, for people and for Vietnamese people specifically, a lot of the time. I mean, it's a mammoth company. I guess it's the largest company in Vietnam. Market cap of something like $21 billion. So, this is a company with major resources, but fairly new to the car business. Describe VinFast as a portion of this business.
Yeah, absolutely. Founded in 2017, and it's been a rapid rise. Fast is in the name, and we do things swiftly, quickly, and as precise as we can. The manufacturing plant in Haiphong was built in record time, produced our first vehicle on the road in 2018. And then quickly 2019, 2020 advanced from producing ICE vehicles to exclusively EVs, okay? And then launching quite a few different lines.
I mean, that's a pretty quick transition right there, right? To go from
Yeah.
internal combustion engine vehicles to electric vehicles. But seeing the future, I guess the company decided that's where the future lied. Right?
Absolutely. And taking something from conception to reality and actually delivering it to customers. We've been delivering cars in Vietnam for quite a few years now. I forgot to mention VIN Bus is part of the nonprofit division, and VIN buses are on city streets. We have contracts with a few of the city governments in the area. So Meteoric Rise, we're excited to launch globally here, obviously in the US, Canada.
And you're kind of just now introducing in North America, correct? Or have introduced in the last several months, I guess?
Yeah, that's right. We have the VF8 City Edition that was shipped over late last year. We're starting deliveries to customers. The VF8 Standard Edition, which has a longer range battery pack, is actually at the port as we speak now, and will be in the hands of customers later this month for the US customers, and then Canadian customers will happen in June.
Yeah. So this is a company with significant production capacity, and you're adding capacity in the United States, and that's exciting too. Talk about that a little bit.
That's right, that's right. So I mentioned the plant in Haiphong with 250,000 plus capacity or volume, you could say.
It could expand almost to 1 million, I think 900,000 or something
Absolutely.
like that. Yeah.
That's right. Large footprint. We actually have an e-scooter business, and production is actually out of that plant as well. I believe up to around 500,000 units per year. Moving over to the North Carolina manufacturing plant that is up and coming, will be in production, in operation, hopefully in 2025, fingers crossed. There are obviously a lot of logistics and approvals that have to happen, but that is on the roadmap of 2025.
Yeah, and that will have a production capacity of, I think, 150,000 initially, something like that. So,
Yep.
I mean, that's ambitious goals in the American market. You're kind of launching in an interesting way in North America, I think. Launching first in the state of California. Talk about that, would you?
Yeah, that's right. When you think about EV adoption and the customers that we're trying to target, California, I like to think is a couple years ahead of different parts of the country, if you will, especially when it comes to EV adoption, solar adoption, etc. So we felt like California was the right place to start. We have 20 plus stores that will be opening here by the end of 2023, and then 10 plus in Canada by the end of 2023.
Right. And some will be more like traditional dealerships, I guess, and some will be in-mall locations that are essentially kind of showcase for the vehicles. Talk about that.
Yeah, so our model is DTC. We've built...
Direct to consumer,
correct.
I think is what you mean.
Yeah, direct to consumer. We have showrooms that are typically in malls, so high traffic areas, and then we also have service centers that'll be attached to some of our showrooms, and those will be freestanding, and those will be strategically placed currently throughout California, but over time I'm sure we have plans to open nationally.
Yeah, makes sense. And if you have a plant essentially on the East Coast in Carolina, you're probably going to go national. It makes sense to do that. Let's talk about the product. You're going to have several products, but the product I drove today, the vehicle I drove today, VF8, I guess City Edition, give our listeners and viewers the high points on that vehicle.
We're really proud of this product. Exterior and interior design by Pininfarina, I should say in collaboration with Pininfarina. Tech-packed ADAS features. Currently it's level 2 available, and we've teamed up with industry-leading players in this space to make sure that we're moving towards higher levels of autonomy.
Right. So by ADAS, you're talking about advanced driver assistance.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
The vehicle you drove today is the City Edition Plus trim. And the only differences that I would call out between the City Edition and the Standard is going to be the battery pack. The City, produced by our supplier Samsung. The Standard Edition is by CATL, C-A-T-L. And it's an 87.7 kilowatt hour battery pack in the Standard, then the 82 in the City. So a little higher density, therefore the additional range. Power output, the all-wheel drive powertrain, we think is quite competitive in the market. You can take a look at some of those stats as far as horsepower. And
what's max horsepower? It's in the 400
That's
range,
right,
yeah.
low 400s, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And a lot of torque and a lot of immediate torque. They're all-wheel drive, which is an advantage, I think.
Absolutely.
No front-wheel drive offerings. What kind of range? And tell us about charging, because that's becoming more important, how quickly you can charge.
Yeah. So range-wise, our City Edition is just about 200 miles. Again, I would challenge your listeners to take a look at our website. A lot of those details, those specifications are going to be listed out there. From a charging standpoint, you can go 10 to 70% in about 24 minutes on the City Edition. I think closer to 30 on the Standard Edition. I think we've done a lot of user research, a lot of studies. Obviously being a new entrant into the market, we want to make sure we build something that's high quality, that has inclusive pricing, and offers a great after-sales service. In fact, those are our three pillars that the whole company really marches towards. Again, great products, inclusive pricing, to ensure that we're very competitive.
So do you consider yourself a premium brand? Is VinFast a premium brand? Do you feel like you compete with the other premium brands, Mercedes-Benz, BMW, Lexus, et cetera, et cetera? That's the vision?
Yeah, that's the vision. Obviously inclusive pricing is a core pillar of ours. It means that we need to be diverse in price ranges that we offer. So in addition to BF8s, we have smaller vehicles, the BF6 and 7, that'll be coming to the US, Canada, and European markets very, very soon. Those would be highly competitive in terms of pricing, horsepower, range, all of those things. I think when we release those official specs, will be pretty.
You've priced though the VF8 that we've driven. What's the general pricing on that? There's two levels of that, I think.
That's right. The VF8 City, the lease is around $414. The Plus edition, VF8 City Edition Eco is $414. The VF8 City Edition Plus, with additional package features, upgraded wheels, etc., is going to be $530. But again, please take a look at our website on those latest figures.
Okay.
Yes.
And we'll check out that pricing. What are some of the features of this vehicle that you're most proud of? When you look at the vehicle, you go, we nailed it with that. This is cool, and cooler than maybe some others have done.
Yeah, I think when you think about EVs today, the OTA features or the ability to do an over-the-air update is really important. And what that allows product planning, product strategy teams to do is continue to innovate, right? Whether it's from an ADAS perspective, whether it's to improve the driving dynamics, whether it's to improve entertainment features in the vehicle, the best is yet to come, right?
Describe some of that infotainment stuff that you have. I mean, you're immediately struck when you get in the vehicle by the size of the screen, and the screen's kind of all-inclusive in a Tesla kind of sense, right? Tell us about that.
Yeah. Voice assistance is a great way to control various things inside the vehicle. Hey VinFast would activate our Cerence partner. We also have Alexa integrated into the vehicle. So Hey Alexa, you can control windows, you can control radio stations, you can ask for the weather. Sunny San Diego, I'm sure it's gonna be 72 degrees. You can ask
somewhere
for the
around
latest,
here, I think it will be, yeah.
soon. Little cold today, but absolutely. You can ask for the latest financial news, etc. From an audio perspective, we have TuneIn and iHeartRadio. I can't really reveal who our video streaming partner is just yet, We're really excited about that
You
announcement.
can jot it down for me, and I'll hold the embargo. But I'm glad to see you have iHeartRadio, which carries America on the Road.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's
So
right.
That's very cool.
Tune in.
Yeah, very good. I think we're on Tune In too. So excellent. Other features you'd like to talk about? I mean, this is a vehicle that has, I think, a lot of luxury features to it. What are some of the other things you would
The
point
air
out?
quality ionizer, I would say, is a nice touch, just ensuring you always have fresh, clean air in the vehicle. The ambient lighting, from an entertainment perspective, there's gaming. So we have Asphalt 9. So being able to, while you're charging, play some games, etc. There's in-car karaoke. So you, your family, your friends, you can enjoy the entertainment experience together.
Yes, and it's so fun to enjoy that together. Do a little singing in the car.
That's right.
Nice ambiance in there. Nice echo chamber. So that's perfect. Luxury equipped. The vehicle I had a blue interior that I thought was very, very nice. Nicely done. So that's all good. Some convenience features. I think you have a kick to open lift gate, for example, things like that.
That's right. That's right. Auto in reverse, auto tilting mirrors, a foot kick sensor, various luxury touches like that to make sure that you, your friends, your family have what you need in a luxury vehicle like the VF8.
Okay. Well, let's make certain that our listeners can get to the right website to see your vehicle. Give us the website information, if you would.
Yeah, absolutely. VinFastAuto.us. And on the site, you'll see all the latest specs, pricing, the additional models that we're going to be launching here very soon. I touched on the VF6, 7, which is not out yet. VF9, which is our 3-row luxury SUV that we're really, really excited about.
Having a 3-row is kind of a landmark. There's very few of them out there.
Yeah.
On the EV side.
That's right. You'll have longer range with there. You have plenty of room, I guess really in both the VF8, but especially the VF9 being a 3-row SUV. We have the captain chair setup or a full bench in the second row.
Terrific. So VinFast is the brand and various vehicles coming soon. California first and then the rest of the country. Jonathan, Chen, thanks so much for being with us. We really do appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
And thanks so much for being with us here on America on the Road. Stay with us for more. We'll be right back. Welcome back to America on the Road with Chris Teague, Jack Nerad back with you. And it is our final segment of the day. The time just goes so rapidly when I'm talking with Chris about cars. I have a great time doing it. I hope you have a great time listening. And thanks so much for listening to America on the Road. We really do appreciate it. This is our listener question segment of the show where we take questions from people who are listening across the country. We appreciate you listening and asking intelligent questions. We have a very intelligent audience, obviously, because we get good questions. And it's easy to get us questions. Send them to editor@drivingtoday.com, editor@drivingtoday.com, and we'll answer your question on an upcoming show. Here's a question from Pat in Austin, Texas. I hear cars described as having gasoline engines, but I never hear an electric vehicle as having an electric engine. Instead, they are always called electric motors. Why is this? What is the difference between a motor and an engine? There's several definitions for that, right, Chris?
There are, Jack. I'm actually going to have to let you take this one because I want to hear your expertise.
Well, I think I have a reasonable expertise on this. One definition is a motor generates, actually does not generate its own power. It needs to have power supplied to it. Thus, electricity goes into electric motor, and then the electric motor works. Within an engine, like a gasoline engine, it's basically creating power within the engine. So it's kind of performing the generating function of generating electricity. In this case, it's not generating electricity, but it's generating power and torque in a different way from the use of fuel, and then and immediately providing it to the vehicle. So that's a definition thereof, and that's why people use the term motor to describe engines. I mean, you hear people describe. One guy I know, Leon Kaplan, is the motor man. A guy who's been doing automotive radio forever and ever and ever. And he actually talks much more about engines than he ever talks about motors. But I get that. But I think technically it's a gasoline engine, an internal combustion engine, or ICE, and then an electric motor. Because the power
that makes sense. I feel educated.
Yeah. Well, good. And I think it's an interesting question because you hear what Pat is hearing all the time, but I don't think people have the explanation of that. So, and some people misspeak and say this has an electric engine, but I almost never see that. Sometimes they do say it has a gas motor, and in the colloquial sense, I guess that's okay, but it's not technically correct.
All right.
And I'm sure engineers listening to the program have a much better definition than I have, and I'd love to hear that. So put it out there. But, that's from the 35,000 foot level, the difference between a motor and an engine. So let's take this question from Daniel in Las Vegas. And this deals with electric vehicles with electric motors, not electric engines. I'm thinking of buying a used electric vehicle, but a lot of my friends say I'd be crazy to do that. I wonder who he hangs out with. They've got their opinions. I'm not sure I understand the reasons they give me, but Daniel doesn't give us those reasons, so we can come up with reasons of our own. Do you agree with them, I think, on the larger issue, and can you help me understand this? Yes, we can. Can't we, Chris?
Yeah, I don't think I agree with them on not buying a used electric vehicle. I think some people have a misconception that electric vehicles wear out faster than gas vehicles, or the battery stops charging after a certain number of miles. And that's true, but the number of miles and the time from purchase until that actually happens is several years and maybe hundreds of thousands of miles. So I think that there's really, it's a case by case basis, but there's no reason not to buy a used electric car unless you just absolutely have to have the full brand new electric vehicle tax credit. So I think that would be my only concern is, right, the tax credits there, Jack. What do you think about that?
I think that's one major issue, one major thing that's standing against used vehicles. And basically that kind of ipso facto lowers the value and lowers the price of used vehicles. So maybe they become more of a bargain as a used vehicle because you have to deal with that $7,500 tax credit that essentially is going to lower the real transaction price of the new vehicle. And the price of a new vehicle has a very direct effect on the price of used vehicles that are comparable. So I might say, well, if you're going to buy a 2 or 3 year old used electric vehicle, and maybe that's a sweet spot, or maybe it isn't, depending on how you look at it. It's probably a sweet spot in terms of battery life, but not necessarily in terms of price. You got to be very careful about the price, because you could buy a brand new one, get a $7,500 tax credit, and maybe that's even cheaper, depending on the arbitrage there or whatever is going on. But like you, Chris, I think that there are bargains in used electric vehicles. And again, it depends on use. We talked about this, I think, in an earlier segment. Depending on how you're using that electric vehicle, you might be fine with an electric vehicle that has, 100 miles of range or 120 miles of range. You're charging it at home. You're driving it maybe 20 miles a day or less or something like that, or you're just using it occasionally for errands, and you can, again, charge it at home very economically. That could be a big winner for you. So think about that.
Yeah, I know at least 5 people in the past year who have bought very old electric vehicles just to use as an around town, an around town commuting machine, because all they need is 100 miles or 150 miles of range. So there are definitely plenty of examples out there that will meet most people's needs.
Yeah, I think a lot of vehicles out there, it depends on, it's getting the right horse for the course, right? I mean, that's why we have so many different types of vehicles on the market. I mean, not every vehicle is supposed to do the same thing. So why should every vehicle have exactly the same range on electricity? I think that's something maybe being missed out there in this quest for 300-mile range, maybe for vehicles where we don't need it. Well, let's take this question from Louis in Providence, Rhode Island. I spent some time in Providence, Rhode Island, wandering around that place. And I think it's not too far from where you are too, Chris, right?
A few hours, yeah.
Yeah. Here's the question. I see a lot of vehicles that are equipped with continuously variable transmissions these days. Then some of them have shift paddles for gear changes. But I thought continuously variable meant they don't have gears. What's going on here? Are we being misled?
Well, you're not being misled. It's automakers' attempt to try to make the CVT as regular transmission-like as possible, right? So they're trying to to make you feel like you have the engaged experience. And there aren't gears, Jack, and you might correct me here. This is a continuous gear ratio with a continuously variable transmission rather than stepped gear ratios that you get in a normal torque converter transmission. But Toyota and a few other automakers have done some trickery with the CVT that makes it feel like it has a real first gear before then going into the continuously variable action. But I don't think anybody's pulling the wool over your eyes. I just think they're trying to make the car feel more quote unquote normal to everyday buyers.
Yeah, I think that's true. And they're trying to placate us in the enthusiast reviewer community who like that kind of stuff and are not big fans of continuously variable transmissions. I think they do a nice job with continuously variable transmissions these days. They don't have the hum and thrum that they used to have. Likely they're fun. I feel kind of weird about using shift paddles in a vehicle that has a continuously variable transmission, but that's just me. And I'm strange in many ways, not just that one. So tell us about what's going on at yourtestdriver.com this week, Chris.
Yeah, we have 1 week left in the Skip Barber Racing School and Team O'Neill Racing Rally School, giveaway that we're running. We're running it, like I said, through the end of May. All you have to do is go to Instagram and follow the post, or follow the account, comment on the post. I'm having trouble talking today. And everything's right there. It's very easy. It's free to enter, and we hope to see you there.
Yeah, please do that because it's terrific. Yourtestdriver.com, kind of all one word, yourtestdriver.com. While you're at it, please check out my newest book, Dance in the Dark. It's a crime thriller inspired by my study of true crime. For some reason, I like crime, or I like studying crime, because people who commit crimes are doing some really stupid stuff most of the time, and it's kind of amusing to me in many ways and tragic in many other ways, too. So check that out, Dance in the Dark, emlancy.com, or on Amazon, of course. If you like the show, if you like America on the Road, please pass it on. Listen to this radio station every week. Tell your friends about it. Let them know that we're available as a podcast. There are various places they can get us as a podcast, can't they, Chris?
Yeah, if you head to sportsmapradio.com, we're on the Saturday morning schedule right there. You can find our major platform podcast on like every single outlet that you can get a podcast from. And you can also get a radio formatted version right from the site right there. So we hope to see you, or hope that you take us with you wherever you go.
Yeah, please join us. And thanks to the SportsMap Radio network stations for carrying America on the Road. We appreciate it. And most of all, thanks to you for listening to America on the Road. We love it that you tune in to us every time around, and we appreciate that. If you like the show, well, let other people's know. Other people know about it, and subscribe, of course, and that helps us out a bunch. So, and join us again next time for another edition of America on the Road.